beginning of each program, we would start with just what we're going to start with now, with Marie reading the Kirtan. And so the name of the book is The Power of Bhakti. And Bhakti Yoga, it's a process of self-realization and a process of realizing the divine and realizing our personal connection with the divine. And a prime foundation of the process of Bhakti Yoga is mantra yoga. And so mantra is a Sanskrit word, has two syllables. And the first syllable, like the English word mind, comes from the Sanskrit mana. And tra means to free, to liberate, to deliver, to extricate. So a mantra is sound vibration that frees the mind from illusion and supports the self to turn towards itself in the spirit of self-realization, and to turn towards the absolute in a devotional attitude. So that's what true mantra is. Actually, we have a few books here tonight. One of them, more or less, it's a book form of my PhD dissertation. And my PhD dissertation back in the 1990s studied the effects of mantra meditation on different mental health indicators, relieving stress, relieving depression, enhancing life satisfaction. And so, in the ancient Vedas, it is described, Idi Shoda Shakam Nam Nam Kali Kalmasa Nashanam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That in this particular age, it's an age called Kali Yuga, this particular age, this what's called the Maha Mantra, it's especially recommended for self-realization and for inspiring the diamond self to shine brightly. And so there's different ways to do mantra meditation, and one way is called Kirtan. And so Marie will lead us, just like she did at the beginning of each program at the home of Dominique and Gaetano. She will lead us in Kirtan. It's a call and response format. So Marie will sing the Maha Mantra, and then we respond. And the basic process of mantra meditation is we sing or chant the mantra, and we do our best to focus our power of hearing and our consciousness and our mind on each word of the mantra. The mantra, Dominique has written it here, the mantra is here, it's 16 words, and really it's 3 words combined into a 16-word mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. And we sing or chant the mantra and do our best to hear the sound vibration. And when Marie sings, we hear, and then we sing. We do our best to absorb ourselves in the hearing and chanting of each word of the vibration and be with our experience and notice our experience. And that's mantra yoga, which is an integral aspect of the process of Bhakti yoga. Okay, so.
Thank you. Good evening. And my prayer is that we will have an experience together of worship coming from deeply in our heart to chant this mantra in a prayerful mood. And it's a call and response, like David said. So I will sing, and then after you respond. And then sometime I may look at one person or another, and they are going to become the leader for one mantra or a few. And then after someone lead, we respond to them. And let's see where the experience takes us. I encourage you to be in that experience, really connecting with your heart in a prayerful mood as you chant the Maha Mantra. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyana Jala Shalakaya Shakshun Militandyena Chasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
That's on the front cover, and it's also right here, the statue. So tonight, I'll share a little, and Gaetano will share a little, and David will share a little, and do a little reading, and just have an experience of letting you know about our experience with Bhakti Yoga and with creating this book. And so what's in this book, I'll just give a little overview, is 8 chapters that are transcriptions of programs that happen in our home that David facilitated. And so it was like so similar to this, we did Kirtan, and then next we would read from the Bhagavad Gita, which is an ancient Sanskrit text that has really wonderful teachings that, you know, some of us really derive a lot of benefit from. So we study the book, and we had spiritual discuss. So we had discussions. We like read a verse from the Bhagavad Gita and read a purport which is in the Bhagavad Gita by Prabhupada. So A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He compiled the Bhagavad Gita and shared it in English in a way that was really transformative for hundreds of thousands of people. And we read from his purport, his explanation of the verse, and then David shared for maybe like 40 or 45 minutes his inspiration from that verse and what he understands and realizes about that topic. And then we all asked questions and shared. And so that was how each program went. And there's 8 of those programs in this book, all the transcriptions of that whole thing, discussion after kirtan. And this is going to be really good. And there's a little concluding chapter as well at the end of the book. So,
Dominique,
yes,
you want the concluding chapter?
I wrote it. And David approved of it. So I'll share with you a little personal experience. So, as I was preparing for this event, I was like feeling overwhelmed, like, who's David? Who's Prabhupada? What's the Bhagavad Gita? What's Satyatov? We haven't even mentioned that here tonight. That's a part of the story. And it's like a lot. And then what's Bhakti Yoga? And what's the mantra? It's kind of like a lot of like terms and people and like things. And I was concerned that everyone would like not understand or be like too much. So I guess at any point someone could pause and ask a question. Or if I don't cover it, someone else can. Or we'll just go home with questions and not have all the questions answered about what all that was about. But anyway, I do care that,
Then you can read the book.
You can read the book, yeah. If you're like, what? Read the book. But anyway. Okay, so I was going to share a little bit of history about how this book came together. So David Wolf and Marie Glasheen, they have founded and facilitated Satyatov Institute. And Satyatov Institute includes communication and relationship skills seminars and personal growth seminars, and it all has a spiritual basis. And not that it's necessarily having to do with Hare Krishna. At the same time, the principles are infused in the Satyatov seminars. And I don't know if I'm doing this justice, but Gaetano and I went through the Satyatov seminars. Satyatov also includes coach training and other programs. We went through the seminars and they were really transformative for us. And it was really like striking and profound, and we were very curious to know more about David and Marie, seeing the transformation that they were able to create, not just for us, but for everyone that we saw come in contact with Satyatov. It's just really a powerful program. And we knew that there were these other programs, which were Bhakti Yoga programs, because part of their, as we can see, it's part of their spiritual life is Bhakti Yoga and mantra meditation and studying Bhagavad Gita and following the teachings of Prabhupada, Swami Prabhupada. So we were curious, and really I'll say personally, right after I went through the second Satyatov seminar, which is called the Advanced. So that's like a 7-day seminar where people are diving in and they're looking at things and it's like looking at the hard things, but then they discover something really amazing about themselves, many things, and seeing everyone do that, it's just, it's really inspiring. It's just, just out of this world, really. So at that last day of my seminar, I was like surrounded by all these Bhakti people at lunch. I didn't really like realize anything but until after, but they were all like surrounding me and we were just eating lunch. I didn't know, and I was just like, and I asked Marie, how did you come up with this part of the seminar? I'm not gonna like describe something personal there with details, and she said, I prayed about it and it came to me like in a prayer, like you had prayed to God. You mentioned God, and I was like, okay, like I didn't have a relationship with God, and I felt open-hearted, and I felt like this trust in you. I'm like, okay, but let me pause there. So Bhakti means devotional service, and Bhakti Yoga is the art and science of using our loving service propensity and directing it to God or the divine, however you see the divine. So Bhakti is like where you're coming from with what you're creating in the Sappatook seminars is to love and serve God, and you're praying to God about specific things you do. You know, it was a specific thing, not just from the seminar, but something that specifically happened. And I watched you do something, and I was like, how did you know that or do that? You know, it was amazing to me. And it was a prayer. I was like, wow. And it actually made me cry. We were sitting there, and I was like, oh, I don't know why I'm crying so much. But then the Bhakti yogi over on my left side knew exactly what I was going through, and everything he said was making me cry. And I was like, I don't know why I'm crying. But it's just really touching, this idea of God. Oh, I don't know. This idea of like loving and serving God and opening up my heart in that way. I have never done that. So anyway, there's many details to that story, but so I just became curious, and I started asking friends and my husband about their relationship with God, or if they believed in God, and I was like realizing I should give it a try to see if I could develop a relationship with God, because that would be unfortunate if there really exists like this conscious creator who's like this father to me, and I'm going to go a whole lifetime without attempting to connect and see, you know, if I can have a relationship too, because it really seemed really touching. So after the seminar, I went crazy with questions, and I was like, and these are questions from June and July of 2014, and it just kind of, I was inspired this morning getting ready for tonight. I realized I had a dream before I started asking these questions. So the dream was really intense. Like I was in a boat in the ocean, and it was nighttime, and my children fell in the ocean. They were babies, and that like it shocked me. Anyway, I don't even know if I can tell the dream, but it just like this terror like shocked me and woke me up. And then the rest of that night, I tossed and turned because I knew about these Bhakti programs, but I didn't know. I wasn't like I really knew much about it, but I was like, I need to contact David to organize an enlightenment program. And I realized this morning before I was going to tell the story about these enlightenment programs. Oh, I need to contact David. So I was like literally telling him to contact David, do an enlightenment program. I need to do an enlightenment program. And I couldn't sleep, and I was like, David, you know, I need to organize an enlightenment program. So it was like the rest of the night. And I woke up immediately and wrote you. I was like, could I do a program? I acted calm. I didn't like sell that book. And then he explained the whole thing to me. Well, because I was like, can we do it Sunday? It was like 5 days. I wanted everybody to come, like, let's do this, you know. But I was like, Sunday, 5 p.m., like, what do I need to do, you know? It was like the earliest possible chance. And he gave me, like, he's like, well, you know, this is usually how we do it, and this is what's usually there. And he was like, letting me know, it was like, oh, I can't do that, you know. But he wasn't saying like that, but I couldn't do that. So this is what I said to him. Thank you, David. This is June 18th. I don't know, maybe like 9 days after the seminar ended. Thank you, David, for being open to my request and for all the details about how an enlightenment program is arranged. While I do want it to happen, I'm not going to organize a program for Sunday. I do not feel like I have time to give it the full preparation that is needed. Thank you so much for considering to do it. I gained so much from being in association with people involved in Krishna consciousness, and I am eager to spend more time with others in this way. And I interspersed his responses. He kind of replied. David said, I'm inspired to hear this, and I fully support your enthusiasm to associate with persons involved with the process of developing Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is a name for God, so God consciousness. So Bhakti Yoga is like it's a way to cultivate thinking of God all the time and how to serve him. So that's what Krishna consciousness is. I understand that you're experiencing a special taste, a distinctive fulfillment in that association. And then I wrote, so everything I wrote is one email, and then his replies are a second email. It's just 2 emails. I had a sense of urgency yesterday about this. That feeling came out of a prayer and then some dreams from the night before. I was tossing and turning after the dreams, wanting to contact you to ask about an enlightenment program. David said, fascinating. It sounds like your natural eagerness for Krishna consciousness is being awakened and is emerging, demanding to be expressed. Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition from any external source. Rather, it is the original consciousness of the soul. And then I said, I realize now that the Sunday advanced seminar post-training, which is something that happens after, will be a pleasant touch in and connection point for me. And if Abhi is there, I do foresee kirtan, which I love. David said, okay, so even though we won't do a full announced enlightenment program after the post-training, let's be open to do some bhakti yoga, Krishna conscious activities, some japa, such as japa and kirtan after the post-training, with whoever's there. I'll tentatively plan for that, and after the post-training, if there's interest from at least a few, let's do that. And then I said, could you add me to your devotional database, which is like an email list? Also, do you have regular programs? And then he says the answer to that. And anyway, next, if you don't mind me sharing a little bit more, I got really excited about I went through a few more programs and then realized everything was making sense to me, what I was experiencing, and asked, I don't know if I should read these, but they're really interesting questions. I compiled all my questions from June and July. I don't know what time it is or how far along.
Read a few.
What time is it?
Let's hear a few.
7:30.
It's only 7:30? I'm going to read them.
Read them all.
we have time. We have time. So, the reason why I think this was so interesting, because it's an experience of the soul waking up and asking questions. Like, what are we doing here? Why? No, like, really, why? Like, okay, I want to know the answers. And, like, you know, really, like, I was, like, starving for, you know, spiritual knowledge. And, you know, the reason why we hosted 50 programs in our home is because the answers were so satisfying and continue to be satisfying and continue to blow my mind and deepen my faith in God. And, you know, I just feel like I did so much personal growth before Sadhvatog and chanting Hare Krishna, and I didn't feel like this type of transformation. So it's just really profound, and I'm completely enthusiastic to host the programs and put this book together because, you know, it's what's true for me. All right, let's do this. This is just like, these are only the questions, but David answered every single one of them, and this is only 2 months, and I asked way more questions in this, and he was very patient, and I felt bad. All right. There's one, I didn't print this out, but I saw one sentence. I'm back. Hi. I'm back. Sorry, but I'm going crazy. I'm really excited to share this with you guys. So, all right. Are there prophecies, stories about the future of the world or humanity in the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, or the Vedas? I would also like to understand the difference between these books and are there other ones? Do they all originate from India? Is Hinduism rooted in these books or just some of them? Does Krishna consciousness believe in only one God or many? Do you consider yourself Hare Krishna? Do Hare Krishnas by definition follow the Bhagavad Gita or other books? I'm so curious about the Vedas. Where can I go to read some of it? Also, what do you believe or know about negative entities or energies? Are they good at the core? What is transcendentalism versus mysticism? Haha, those words are usually easier for me to understand, but everything feels new to me, like I'm seeing the world in a new way. I'm having intellectual curiosities, but also I realize that there are experiential ways to gather information that may guide me further and in a deeper way, more personal way. Honestly, I feel quite scared to really open up to having a relationship with God. I'm not there yet. Could you share with me your perspective on people who are suffering, stagnant, lost? Is that a version of life purpose that may not look fulfilling from the outside, but it is a perfect existence for those people? And what about short-lived lives? Are there specific steps or a set formula for forming a relationship with God according to the Bhagavad Gita or Vedic traditions? Would you share with me some time about your experience, about what your experience was developing your relationship with God, and we actually scheduled an hour-long phone conversation just for that question. Please, I need to know what is this? All right, those were June. Here's July. And there was more. I mean, I couldn't go. I didn't have enough time. I put this all together today.
It was actually June 25th.
Are you serious? Seriously, you remember that?
Careful.
Oh my God! It says June 25th on my piece of paper.
Being comical there.
You're
You said that was June, that was July, so that was June 25th. And then on June 26th, she...
I know, it was like that. I mean, it was like that. This is, some of you know I created a Facebook group called Bhakti Yoga Discussion. I created it because I felt so bad asking him all these questions and him giving all of these personal emails to me. I'm like, well, let's share all these answers with the group because I'm not going to have the end of these questions. And like, I'm draining him, I would at least uplift others. So anyway, July. Okay, so part of July is in the book, and I made note of that. It's at this paper, but I'm going to keep this page. Can a spirit enter the material world for a brief time? Is there always, for every soul, a natural progression from lower intelligence to higher intelligence? What do the final stages of a spirit soul's existence in the material world look like? Monks? Priests? Praying versus chanting versus meditation. I wonder, does God seriously consider helping out someone who is asking for his help? Have you prayed and experienced your prayer being answered? What is the value or purpose of meditation? Why 16 rounds per day? Is there a finite number of living entities? If they are eternal, do you know the amount? How many universes, planets, demigods? What are some of the pastimes of the spiritual world? I wonder, which perspective to rest in? Is it a world of suffering? Which Oh, it's really going crazy. I'm so satisfied telling you about this. Which perspective to rest in? Is it a world of suffering, in which case I decrease my attachments here in order to progress spiritually, or is it a beautiful, abundant world? I realize there's not just two options. It seems that maybe I feel attachments to the beauty of human nature and the beauty of planet Earth. Maybe there is a way to appreciate these things for what they are, but still contemplate leaving this place forever eventually. When I think of returning to the spiritual realm for eternity back to Godhead, I wonder, will I ever get to associate again with these beautiful spirits that I enjoyed dearly here in this life, my children? I am curious, did Arjuna really follow through with entering battle in which he killed his own people? This Arjuna is a character of the Bhagavad Gita. Does a living entity try out the material world only once ever? It would seem to me that after having full knowledge of that experience, that a living entity would not try it again, meaning come back to the material world. This is all like, I didn't know. So, do some living entities never try out the material world? I have read that the material world is eternal. Does there reach a point where the material world becomes barren or completely dies because no entities enter it eventually? I am curious, do you answer many other questions from other people? Like, what if everyone that came here was as psycho as me?
What was I doing 12 hours a day just
Like, I need a Facebook group.
Dominique, I just want to know if the June questions are going to be a prequel book.
What?
If the June questions are going to be a prequel book.
There could be many volumes of David entering and giving someone else other questions. I like to keep going with everybody's time. I want to learn more about Srila Prabhupada's life. Where should I turn to for that information? Would you explain to me why Earth is a middle planet, and what are the other types of planets? Yesterday morning, Sita mentioned that the human form of life was a better opportunity for self-realization than a demigod body. Could you explain this? Who are the demigods, goddesses? Sun, moon, planets? What else could they be? I read or heard somewhere about there being 400 types of human bodies. Could you explain that to me? Do you ever pray to them or other entities besides Lord Krishna? What are the prescribed behaviors of a spiritual husband and wife? Is it God at the top and then all the other living entities are at the same level? Or are there arms, organs, legs. In other words, larger or more powerful spirits than us, yet, of course, less powerful than God. This is a personal question, but you brought it up in discussion yesterday, so I think it is open for discussion. Do you believe that the chanting at the end of your father's life, those last 40 minutes, by the way, that story is in the book, of which he was clearly waiting for those 40 minutes of chanting before leaving his body, could have the effect of your father discontinuing the reincarnation process and returning to be with God? I read in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita that all one must do, actually, is to simply be thinking about God, or something like that. Is it that simple? I would think that the whole lifetime would be taken into account, not just the final thoughts, though I'm sure they do matter. And I read that other authorities make the decision about a spirit soul's next life. I didn't read Krishna, nor that it was the soul itself. Who then? Is there a recommendation for when to chant the 16 rounds of japa, some in the morning, some at night? Wouldn't anyone who is becoming self or God realized discover that they have quite similar life purposes to each other? An example to explain. To support others in self-realization. So what I'm saying is, for someone who's becoming self or God realized, that's actually a similar project. Like, to realize who you are, to realize who God is, that they go together. That's what I was asking. Wouldn't it be the ultimate, most pleasing service to God and spirit souls to help others? Seems like an obvious thing to me. All right, here's the last paragraph. I had a thought today. It appears true to me that people who come into contact or are already in intimate contact with a person who is awakening or has awakened their original Krishna consciousness are doing so subconsciously to attempt to reawaken themselves. Meaning, everyone in my life is here and close to me for this moment of my awakening in the hopes of reawakening their true selves. The process has already been well underway, and my contact with Safato, you, Marie, and even my moving to Gainesville, etc., is all a part of the journey to this spiritual awakening. My husband married me for the upward trend that I represented in his spiritual life and vice versa. Not that I'm necessarily the linchpin for everyone in my life, but I could be. In fact, it is likely that if I follow this new spiritual path, awakening fully and rigorously, it would undoubtedly bring others along. I am taken aback by this process. I have suspended disbelief for the past week or so and have just been operating under the new world view that God is conscious. That's my big block. Other truths like divine energy, eternal spirits, life purpose aren't so much a thing to tackle for me. Even being devoted to the highest spiritual truth, whatever that may be, is fully aligned with my previous worldview. Anyway, I thought that was kind of fun to share, like, a little window into how much I was yearning for spiritual knowledge and self-realization, and I loved every answer that David shared, and he was always pointing me back to the answers coming from Bhagavad Gita and Srila Prabhupada, but it all has just deeply enriched my life and made me feel like finally, and we started hosting programs. That was like in October, so June, July were those questions, and then in October I got inspired to host a program, and then we kept hosting them every month for 5 years, from 2014 to 2019. And I think that's it for now. I mean, I didn't read from the book. There's a whole section, but I think you got a taste of like where I was coming from. And I think that's all.
Are those questions answered in the book?
Those
or
questions.
Answered in the book?
If anyone wants to hear the answers, I have them all almost.
I'm just wondering.
Those are not in the book. This was just something I was inspired this morning to share, so I put it together.
In the transcriptions of the programs, responses to many of those questions are in the book. I would say if we heard the recordings of the 50 programs, we'd get maybe 90% of the responses. These are somewhat eight were drawn at random, and then maybe at some point we can make the full correspondence available. Since you've piqued curiosity.
Yes, I'd be happy to compile all the responses to that. Yeah. So thank you for entering my world. And I'd like to hear from Gaetano now.
Thank you, Dominique.
Hi. So, well, that's pretty loud. I'm feeling pretty shy, especially with my voice amplified. I feel uncomfortable in general speaking in front of groups, and yes. So I'm here and I'm speaking in front of a group again, and my voice is really loud. So here we go. I mean, if it's, can you still hear me well?
Yeah.
That's a little better?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not so loud in my ear. That was pretty intense. So, hi. I'm Gaetano. I'm Dominique's husband. And, so yes, I guess I wanted to share a little bit about what was happening for me about the time when we started these programs. When Dominique was going through all these questions, she was like really just wanted to know answers to all those questions that she had. And about that time, I was like, I like Bhakti yoga. I was like, yeah, I like chanting a little bit. And then she, I was kind of just kind of watching her go through her experience. I could say that I wasn't like really seriously practicing Bhakti yoga at the time, or really even that interested at the time. And Dominique's like, I want to host a program at my house. I'm like, okay, sure, why not? I appreciate the Savatov community and what I had experienced of Bhakti yoga up to that point. Felt fine to me, and to support that experience. And then after a few programs, I got into it. I was really appreciating the experience, the mantra chanting as a group, and then picking topics. We chose different topics that were generally topics that were just kind of easy for the common person to kind of connect to. And I think that's most of the topics that we picked of the programs at our house. I think that's, would you say something like that?
They're meant for like someone who was brand new to the philosophy. They weren't like advanced.
We would come up with creative titles.
Yeah. They were mostly meant for newcomers, even though we had a lot of experienced practitioners. Yeah, and we were new ourselves, so it worked well for us at the time. Yes. So this book is I feel like it's supportive for anybody who's interested to want to know more about Bhakti yoga, because it, like I said, the programs are kind of basic topics and about the philosophy of Bhakti yoga and different paradigms of that philosophy. So I appreciate the book for that, and how it's it's paper. I still like reading paper books personally. So after, I'm not sure the timeline of everything for me personally, but I was cultivating a lot of value from practicing Bhakti yoga in my own personal life, and before I came to Bhakti yoga, I had a lot of blocked energy on even opening myself up to the possibility of having a relationship with some like divine intelligence, higher than myself. I was had a lot of just anger and bitterness in regards to that association. And what stands out for me with Bhakti yoga was like a radical responsibility, 100% responsibility of the individual, taking a look at like what is my responsibility in this life? What is my responsibility in the existence of everything? And then, yeah, and that helped me take a look of, or at least try out the paradigm of like, well, maybe I can have a relationship to something higher than myself. And as I continued to give myself to the process, I felt inspired to express myself artistically, and I started sculpting. This sculpture right here is came later on, probably about 3 years after starting my journey into Bhakti Yoga, and I named it Bhakti. I was trying to create a visual image of like what is the experience of Bhakti Yoga? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And so that was my intention behind Bhakti, is what I called her, and she is. I could share because I don't know if it's in the book, but the sculpture itself represents the philosophy, and that so there's the bottom is represents the material ocean. So this material world is it's described as an ocean, and according to the philosophy, it comes up a lot. If you read the philosophy, this material ocean, and so there's a way out of the material ocean, which is the transcendental platform. And one comes to the transcendental platform by cultivating what's called the mode of goodness, sattva. And so there's, according to the philosophy, there's three modes we operate in. There's different variations of each, but the mode of ignorance, the mode of passion, and then the mode of sattva, which is the mode of goodness. So in order to, the best position for us to awaken our natural awareness of the self and awareness of our relationship with the divine is to come to the platform of sattva, which is cultivating the mode of goodness, and then from that platform we have the Maha Mantra, which is the mechanism to really activate our and uncover our natural state of being according to the philosophy. This is what the philosophy presents, is this idea that we have a natural loving relationship with the divine, and it's covered. And so this is an uncovering process to reconnect to our original state of being. So she's standing on the transcendental platform, and the Maha Mantra is the mechanism of that platform. And that's what the symbols are around the bottom. It's the Hare Krishna mantra that you see up here. It's just in Sanskrit. And then she's in traditional garb of the Vaishnava female wear, what females wear in the Vaishnava tradition. I like old world tradition statues and dress, so I put her in that. And then the bowl represents service. She's connecting her hands on her heart. She's connecting to the connection of God in the heart. And then she's, experiencing the joy and the bliss and just the fulfillment of being in devotional service is the feeling that I was intending on expressing and the statue. So yeah, so it was a challenge because I didn't know anything about sculpting when I started sculpting. Yeah, so yeah, it was quite a experience. I started, if you flip through the book, you can see I have some smaller statues that I made before her, which was the first statue. Oh, that's right. Yeah, these little guys here. They're I don't know if you can see them. It's kind of small, but if you get some time before you leave, you can pick up a book and flip open the first part, and it has a little picture of the little devotee. So I was practicing small because I wanted to make big statues. So I started out small, and then I created this. The devotee is gratitude, and that was my first expression with my chanting practice and this cultivating this philosophy, and it was to express gratitude. So I made the little devotee statue. He's really experiencing gratitude for this new experience in his life, and that was my experience in my life, of feeling so much gratitude that I that my life was transforming into something that I had no idea, that a direction that I wasn't expecting, and I had no idea that I could have that experience in this life. My younger years, I felt very disconnected from myself and life and humanity and just God, and I just felt really just kind of isolated and alone, just this overall like feeling. So this was like it was a really big deal for me to feel like, oh, there's something else in this life that is so much more than just feeling isolated and alone. So that was a really big new direction for me personally, yeah. So that's a little bit about me and my involvement with this book. Again, I opened my home up to host programs at my house, and so that's how I contributed to a major way, and it felt really easy. It didn't really feel like, there was a little preparation or whatever, but that was the work. But for the most part, it was easy to invite.
It was an easy choice.
Yeah, to invite it into my home, and I feel forever grateful to have come into contact with this path, and Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, giving every bit of his essence, every bit of his energy and his life to spread this Krishna consciousness around the world. He is so inspiring, so much devotion. So I feel personally like I would not be sitting here talking about this book right now if it weren't for him and his service. So I guess I feel complete. If anybody has any questions before we move to Dear Govinda, I could answer them. Thank you all for coming. Yes.
I just want to say thank you for opening up your inner world and your experience together, like as a couple and individually, around your spiritual world. I think it's such a private thing for so many people, and it's so sweet and kind for you both to do that, and to see how that works for the two of you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, it feels pretty vulnerable. Yeah.
Following up on what you expressed, because we've known each other for many years now, but just in this past few minutes, I like how you said that you opened up your inner world, and I got a deep behind your art, the devotion behind your art and the meaning. So I thank you for your sharing. I'm going to try it without the microphone. I'll take the book though. Hi, I'm David Wolf, and basically, for the past almost 40 years, like if someone asks me to share about the philosophy and practice of Bhakti Yoga, I get excited. I'm pretty simple that way.
Yes.
And so Dominique and Gaetano, they just kept asking me each month for like 5 years, come to us and share about Bhakti Yoga. So I'm excited. And okay, so I thought to read one. Well, first of all, since Dominique mentioned, Gaetano mentioned, okay, so the chapters are entitled 1, what is transcendental knowledge? 2, states and stages, epiphany and crash on the path of self-realization. It's meant to pique your curiosity. 3, like a fish in water, or diagnosis and treatment of all mental health disorders. It's here. I'm a psychotherapist and a supervised psychotherapist. It's all here, diagnosis and treatment. Just shameless about it. Okay. Yeah, I mean certain professional boards of directors, they would just ban me and bar me for what I just said. Oh my God. Chapter 4, austerities of the mind, or would you prefer to live with your best friend or worst enemy? Chapter 5, Maya, the ultimate virtual reality. Chapter 6, steadiness in spiritual life. Chapter 7, the ancient Vedas confirm you are amazing. In chapter 8, realizing the inconceivable. So I thought to read the final paragraph of an introductory chapter that I wrote. So, in a final paragraph. I ask that you enter this book in a spirit of discovery, open to adventure. The Vedic injunction is Tamasimad Yotir Gamad, don't remain in darkness, go to the light. My hope is that this reading experience will provide you with illumination, enlightenment in your journey of self-discovery, in the context that, in a sense, light is just the beginning. To quote William Blake, God appears and God is light to those poor souls who dwell in night, but does a human form display to those who dwell in realms of day? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The Hare Krishna part was not William Blake. My addition. So, I just read it because the Blake quote for me points to the relentlessly personal element and essence of this path of bhakti, and Dominique and Gaetano mentioned the Sophitos seminars, and we focus a lot there on communication strategies and principles. Our interest, though, is not intrinsically to collect communication skills and methods, but rather we focus on cultivating mastery in a communication-based approach to self-realization. Communication-based approach to self-realization. And to utilize personal relationships to move forward, to achieve what we consider consistent with ancient wisdom traditions. The most important thing we can do with human life, including human relationships, and that's support each other in self-realization, in the self turning towards itself in self-discovery, and turning towards the supreme in a devotional attitude. And so in the Bhakti literatures, in the ancient Bhakti literatures, it's described, for example, So what that says, it's Krishna speaking to Arjuna, and he's speaking to all of us. And he goes, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings on the battlefield. The scene is a battlefield. Nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. And the text continues. As the embodied soul continually passes from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. Okay, so an example I give, I think it's in the book somewhere, or some of you heard me give. In 2014, same year you wrote me all those questions. In 2014, I was in Colorado. I was giving a presentation. It was a series of veterans hospitals, and most of the audience, there were doctors and nurses, some psychiatrists, some social workers, and anyhow, so I started the presentation. I said, let's say someone comes to you, and they say, I've hurt my finger. So I said, now in that simple phrase, my finger, there are two entities. There's the finger, and there's the owner of the finger. So I asked them, who are you treating, the finger or the owner of the finger? So they sat there and looked a little dumbfounded. And then the director of the hospital said, well, David, that's a very simple question. But we've never thought about it, really. I said, yeah, well, it's important. It's important because, the finger essentially is made of the same stuff as this tablecloth or the lampshade. It's dead matter. There's no healing force. There's no healing potency in the finger. The healing potency is in that irreducible quanta of consciousness that is the owner of the finger. So that atomic unit of sentience that animates the body, the owner of the finger, we're using that term. So that's us. And this kind of ABCs, foundational of spiritual life, is first getting, I'm not matter. Spiritual life means getting, I'm not matter. I'm that spiritual spark. And the Bhakti tradition, by practicing this process, we get to awaken our original, eternal, spiritual personality, so that even when the body dies, so this it's not about when one is fully enlightened, then the soul merges into the light. No, we retain our eternal personality. And in fact, as we become more and more realized in this path, then we shine ever more brightly in our distinctive personality in that devotional service to the Supreme. So that's what because in the Blake quote, God appears and God is light. God appears and God is light, and we might think, he's going to celebrate the light. But he says, no, God appears and God is light to those poor souls who dwell in night. A lot of realization. But does the human form despite those who dwell in realms of day? So that moves me in the Bhakti path. I thought, okay, let's go to the first chapter, and I'll read a bit from the first chapter and see where it takes us. All right. So the text that we read is chapter 4, text 38 of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita means Song of the Supreme. And the text is Nahi Gyanena Sadrisham Pavitrami Avidyate Tat Svayam Yoga Samsiddha Kalinat Mani Bindati. The translation is, in this world there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And one who has achieved this enjoys the self within himself in due course of time. In the purport by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada writes, when we speak of transcendental knowledge, we do so in terms of spiritual understanding. As such, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Ignorance is the cause of our bondage, and knowledge is the cause of our liberation. This knowledge is the mature fruit of devotional service, And when one is situated in transcendental knowledge, he need not search for peace elsewhere, for he enjoys peace within himself. In other words, this knowledge and peace are culminated in Krishna consciousness. That is the last word in the Bhagavad Gita. And then we continue. So this is David speaking. So we continue. So you can't take it with you. You can't take it with you. Whatever we achieve or accomplish, it's all finished at the time of death. Very, very optimistic beginning, very cheery.
That's how you began the book.
So there's something that would be bring more of a smile to the face. Anyhow, so where we go, okay? See where we go from here. You can't take it with you, but we can take transcendental knowledge with us. This is very important because say we live for 70, 80, or 100 years, whatever, and we're eternal beings, so that's 70, 80, 100 years, or whatever it is, 50 years, 120 years. It's not even an eye blink, it's not even a lightning flash compared to our eternal life. So the essence of the book, the essence of everything we do in Sattva is to dedicate ourselves more and more fully, up to 100%, with our full energies, to dedicate ourselves to that which will never be crushed by time, to value that will never be devastated by time, whether, in the next hour, or the next day, or even in the next 100 years, or hundreds of trillions of years. That's the essence. That's the essence. And this bhakti path, that's ancient. Ancient isn't really the right term. It's actually eternal. And it's given to us through our current link to this line of purely realized spiritual masters. Our current link to that line is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And bhakti, it's a scientific process by which we get to realize how to give ourselves to that which will never be devastated by time. When I say scientific, I mean, it's not just, so you believe this, it's not about belief. So you believe, it's not about belief. It's about, there's a consistent, logical, rational hypothesis, and that's where science starts. And then the next step of science is an experiment we can do to test the assertions of the hypothesis. So in bhakti, it's a complete, not that you need to believe me, what's what you're saying to me. You get to apply your intelligence, study the philosophy, and we're giving foundational elements of it here. Study the books of the Bhakti masters like Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And that's what I did back in my early adulthood. I remember I was summer of '83. I was backpacking around Europe, and I stopped at an ashram in Italy, and I read Bhagavad Gita as it is, cover to cover. And I was eager to find flaws, eager to find mistakes and incompleteness, because I'm really smart, and I failed. And to this day, I regret that. And because I saw it not only gave like a consistent intellectual foundation that was internally consistent and externally consistent with my experience of self, my experience of mind, my experience of life, but also gave, and if you want to realize these truths, here's a process you can follow. And at the time, I wasn't looking for God. I wasn't looking for anything spiritual. I had life plans. I had exciting life plans. Bhagavad Gita ruined them. And so now I'm sharing it with you. Precise? Yes. So then, and then I've experienced. I mean, not that like I'm all that serious of a practitioner, but to the extent that I've tried the process, I get direct experience that the truths that made sense intellectually are valid, and that's very joyful and peaceful. Okay. So we talked about death and how everything's useless and futile. See where we go. Now, to the extent that we're trying for value and happiness in the world where things are crushed by time, our stance is that's futile. It's a useless waste of time. And then to the extent that we give our life to to that which will never be, that's this transcendently realized knowledge of who we are, and what's our relationship with the Supreme, and what's life purpose that cannot be what's the source of fulfillment that cannot be interrupted by any cataclysm of the material realm. That's a worthwhile use of time. That's our point of view, consistent with these ancient wisdom teachings. We are spiritual beings, so that's why we avoid death. Even if someone says, "Oh no, I accept death." If someone comes to kill us, we run away, we fight, we don't want to die. If we get some disease, we fight it like that. We don't want to die. Why? Because we're deathless. Because our nature is deathless. Because our nature is eternal. That's why it feels strange to think, I'm going to die. Well, actually, we are deathless. That's good news. The illusion is that we are this dying body. That's our misfortune that we create. So whatever we accumulate in a lifetime in this body, we can't take it with us. A very important realization. The one thing we can take with us is what's described in this verse as transcendental knowledge. That's why it is said, there's nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. We can take that with us. Very important. Very important. It's not just some theoretical philosophy, but in terms of how we live our life, in terms of what we do on a given Sunday morning, related to this verse, this is the most sublime thing we can be doing on a Sunday morning. This is like the most auspicious way to use one's household, to manage one's family, to maximize the time we spend and the effort we give in giving and receiving transcendental knowledge. This is para upakara. This is the real welfare work. This is real compassion, supporting each other in our families, in our communities, in our workplace, in our service place, where we pray, where we play, and giving and receiving transcendental knowledge, and coming out of illusion, because this is what everyone's looking for. And then I quote Prabhupada again from his purport. And one who has achieved this enjoys the self within himself in due course of time. Then the purport talks about peace. Peace. Everyone's looking for peace and fulfillment and empowerment and satisfaction and all these experiences, all these qualities. And so enjoying the self within the self, well, that's transcendental knowledge. Understanding I'm this transcendental being who is intrinsically peaceful and powerful and fulfilled and compassionate, and nothing can throw me off from that. To the extent that I have that realization, nothing external can move me away from that. So that's the consciousness of liberation. We say mantra. Mantra means the sound vibration that liberates the mind from material miseries, from illusion. Illusion, like in the paradigm of Bhagavad Gita, is the whole material world and all that goes on. It's based on illusion. Illusion that we are these bodies, identifying with the body and the extended body. So this is, we gave the finger and the owner of the finger. Sometimes we do a quick experiment. We'll do it now. Imagine you're looking at a photograph of yourself from when you were 5 years old. Just imagine you're looking at a photograph of yourself from when you were 5 years old. Now, when you look at that photo, do you say, "Who is that stranger? Who is that person?" No, I say, "That's me. That's David when I was 5. You say, "That's Adam when I was 5. That's Danielle. That's Brielle." Now, we know from basic chemistry that there's not one molecule, not one atom in our bodies now that was there when we were 5. Except for her. She's an exception. Most philosophical precepts have exceptions, so she's an exception. Okay, so it changes every 7 years. So that indicates, right? I mean, the physical is, it's not like, well, the body grew. No, that's an illusion. It didn't grow. No, the molecules grew. No. No, it's completely different. There's not one atom that was there when I was 5. Still, there's some constant identity that I call David, you call Dominique, you call Marie. That indicates that the self, that owner of the finger, is something completely non-physical. Completely non-physical. And so, to the another analogy we use is like, okay, so we drove here in a Toyota Camry. So let's say I'm driving in that Toyota. And in driving that Toyota, I'm thinking, I am Japanese. Right? So let's say tomorrow I drive in a Volkswagen. I go, I'm German. Next I get a Chevrolet. Now I'm an American. So we all think, well, that's absurd, that's ridiculous. But that's the point of analogy, to see something, to get something that's easy to get. Whereas if I'm thinking, yes, I'm white male, about 5'10", in my late 50s, from Philadelphia. That's just the same as thinking I'm a red Japanese because I'm driving in a red Toyota. So like to get something we can easily get, that's ridiculous. So to think that I'm this body and to act on that illusion, then that's just as absurd. Okay? It's like, and to the extent that we're not getting that, then there's no spiritual life. I'm thinking I am dead matter. So that's again, oh, I'm not dead matter. I'm the driver of the car. I'm the driver. This of course, we're not advocating. The Vedas don't advocate to neglect the car. Of course, we want to take care of the car. We want to know the car and cultivate realization. I'm not the car. I'm the driver of the car. And just like if we let's say we have a mathematical equation that has 12 steps, whatever. Even if we know the steps, but if we start with the wrong numbers, we have 3, 5, and 7 instead of 32 and 21. If we start with the wrong numbers, it's not going anywhere. So similarly, we can seek peace and happiness and fulfillment, and if it's based on an illusion that I am dead matter, it's not going anywhere. So maybe we'll read a bit more and then see if there's any sharing. All right. Let's say someone's sleeping. Okay. And in the dream, they're imagining that they're enjoying as a king or queen, or they're being chased by a tiger. Now, someone with objective vision can see there's no palace here and there's no tiger. But the person says, no, I'm suffering, the tiger's coming. No, I'm enjoying like anything in this palace. No, it's all illusion. How much real fulfillment is possible if it's based on illusion? So the real life is, wake up. You're not that king in a dream. You're not that guy in the jungle being chased by the tiger. Wake up to your real life. This transcendental knowledge, it's sublime. It's wake up to our real life as spiritual beings having a human experience. Not to ignore the human experience. We're having a human experience. An illusion, it's like a prison of illusion. So this is liberating transcendental knowledge. Very important. Liberating from this cycle, samsara. Samsara means the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. Death is not natural for us. We're not meant to be forced to take a body. We're not meant to be suffering these miseries. So, so realizing, okay, I'm not the car, I'm the driver of the car. And then, okay, I'm not the body, I'm not the finger, I'm the owner of the finger. And what's that eternal activity of that irreducible quantum consciousness that inhabits the body? That's Bhakti. That's Bhakti. That's serving the Supreme in the spirit of loving devotion. This is the science how to do that. To the extent that we engage in that eternal activity, then we're peaceful. Then we're peaceful. And that's a process. If we're sincere about it. To the extent that we're sincere about the process, nothing material can get in the way of that. So we're sincere. I want self-realization. I want devotional service to the Supreme. Nothing. Yeah, and I'm sincere. And as soon as I have $200,000 in the bank, I'm going to get on that Bhakti program. And as soon as I get a different position in the company, and as soon as my spouse stops then my sincerity will manifest. So nothing material can get in the way. Nothing material can get in the way of this doubtless and fearless process for the fulfillment of the soul. Any sharing, questions, or comments at this time? Dominique,
I got a question.
you have a question? That is shocking. You would have a question.
So bhakti can be cultivated in different paths, or just this one?
Oh, my understanding, if we look at the essential teachings, any bona fide spiritual path, this is my experience, then it's bhakti. Like Jesus, okay, in the Old Testament, what's the main verse in the Old Testament? I will tell you. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'kol levavecha b'kol nafshecha b'kol modecha. Ken? Yes. Okay, so that's close enough. So basically, that's the main commandment in the Old Testament. That was not Sanskrit, by the way. That was Hebrew. And so God's saying, love me with all your heart, all your might, all your soul. So that's bhakti. Jesus, love God with all your heart. That's bhakti. I'll tell a brief story. In early 2016, 4 years ago, this time of year, January, February, I was in, because this is a beautiful place, Jim. I mean, just the atmosphere here is so spiritually peaceful. And I'm going to take the liberty to say the atmosphere is so bhakti. So early in 2016, I was in Switzerland. I was conducting some Sappho seminars there, and we're staying in a village called Ricon, Switzerland, and it's 40 minutes from the Zurich airport. Anyhow, and it was this time of year, so it was like 4 foot of snow and this and that. I was staying with the Bonomo family, and then Peter Bonomo and their 2 daughters, and Luca and Noah. And right up the mountain, there's a Tibetan Buddhist ashram. In fact, when the Dalai Lama, and I know the Shamlaba line, it's Tibetan Buddhism, but it's a different line than the Dalai Lama. It's through Chogyam Trungpa. I also have some familiarity. So there's 4 main lines of Tibetan Buddhism, and Chogyam Trungpa represents one of the lines, and the Dalai Lama represents another line. So when the Dalai Lama visits Europe, this is where he stayed, within a short walk of where I was staying in Switzerland. So we took a trek up, had snowball fights along the way. I lost. Anyhow, so we took a trip. It was a lot of fun. We were all bundled up, and we get like a 45-minute walk up mountain. It's Switzerland, so it's like mountain. And then we get to this ashram. We get to the ashram, and we enter, and there's the monks. There's monks. Anyhow, the first thing I noticed when I go in, I mean, like just the first word I felt when I went in was bhakti. There was the form of Buddha, who, according to the Vedas, is an expansion and incarnation of Vishnu, the Supreme. There was a form of Buddha, and the monks, they were offering with heartfelt love and devotion apple and incense, and there was the mandalas like that, and so just like they were just very sweet, heartfelt service to the Supreme. So I'm giving that as an example. Whether we look at the essence, I'm not talking about the institutional forms. We look at the essence of what Buddha gave, what Jesus gave, what's there in the Old Testament. Certainly, I lived for years in Muslim villages in the Middle East, mostly Israel. I lived for years with Muslim, and it's just like at 4 a.m. Before sunrise, you hear the Muazzin, Allah Akbar, La ilaha illallah. Just so we were running a Bhakti ashram, and the Muslim prayers is just completely aligned. It is the Bhakti spirit. So the Bhakti spirit certainly it does take different forms. Thanks for your question. Susan, Deva.
It's occurring to me on a deeper level that even learning the skills available in foundational and advanced course in Sappho
Yeah.
are also, you know, the relationship skills and the connection that we make on a deeper level within the community is Bhakti itself.
Yes.
Is there more to say on that?
Well, I think you expressed it succinctly and eloquently. Wonderful. And that's, I just feel you did very very resonant with what you said, and that's
Got it.
and that's it. That we're not just interested to collect communication skills for the sake of it, but to create a sacred space in relationships where we support each other to awaken the natural bhakti of the soul. And I really like how you put that. It's described in the bhakti literatures. Nityasudha Krishna Prema Sajya Kabunai Shravanadi Shudachete Karya Udai. That this bhakti, it's not something to be gained from an external source. It's this love of the supreme, this bhakti. It's intrinsic. It's intrinsic, naturally in the heart of all living entities, and it's awakened. It's awakened by these processes of kirtan, these processes of creating sacred space and supporting each other to distinguish reality from illusion. So yes, what we do in Safatog is meant to it's a nice way to put it, to awaken the original deep-seated bhakti of the soul. Thank you, Susan. Deva.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, if we are spiritual beings having a human experience,
Yeah.
and just the possessor of the finger, not the finger,
Yeah.
then the question arises, okay, so who am I? As a spiritual being, because I've been operating under this theory that I am this material identity
Yeah.
for who knows how many lifetimes.
Long time. Yeah.
And that realization can be kind of destabilizing.
Yeah.
That I don't have any clue who I am. So that's a heavy thing
Yeah.
to think about. So, and it's not like upon that realization, some light shines from the sky and fulfills, my desire to know the truth about my eternal spiritual identity. So, in moving from this old story to this new understanding,
Yeah.
how does one properly do that without just, feeling like you're in a bad acid trip or something? Really,
I appreciate how you put that.
yeah.
Thanks for sharing. You used the term destabilizing. In 2 weeks from today, we're going to start a software advanced seminar. If during the seminar, at least at some time, if during the seminar, if everyone there doesn't feel seriously destabilized, Marie and I will feel like we're not doing our job. Is that true? Let's say someone went through 7 days and we're like, oh, I didn't feel destabilized. What? We failed. So like if we really get this, it should be destabilizing. If we really get this, because false conception of self, those false foundations are removed, they're shattered like that. Like, oh, this was a dream world, and I was putting someone. Now, hopefully, shattered. Hopefully it's all done in a loving, caring way. Now, this is something that I really love about the Bhakti path, because there are many paths. Even like you can just look at songwriters or many paths where the idea is realizing that everything's temporary, everything's an illusion, and everything is masks like that. Okay, so there's many places where we can get that, and that's true. And then I haven't found another place, at least not as powerfully as Bhakti and as clearly, that presents, okay, so here's what's false, and here's what's substantially true. And that's what Bhakti gives us. That's what Bhakti, it's not just like, this was an illusion, this was a deception, this was a mask, this was a facade. Okay, well what's who am I truly, who am I authentically? And oftentimes we're just kind of left with a nothingness, which is very dissatisfying. So for example, like, okay, so bhakti is not a process of elimination. Not this, not this, not this. Bhakti is a process of transformation. Bhakti is a process of, it's not about elimination, it's about transformation. And so for example, I might say, okay, like music and dancing, well that's material. That's material. So if we want to be spiritual, we take that away. No. Then in the bhakti process, we started this with beautiful music and singing, but it wasn't music and singing that further strengthened our alienation and our disconnection, that further strengthened the illusion that I am this body and I'll be happy if I just fulfill the senses of this body. No, it was music and singing that moves the self to turn towards itself and realize who I am is not the body. So this is about engaging all energies in the service of self-realization too. So this mantra, hearing and chanting the mantra, this awakens who we. So this mantra is a prayer. It's, my dear God, please engage me in your service. It's a prayer, and simultaneously, it's the answer to the prayer. It's a prayer, and it's the answer to the prayer simultaneously. Because just by chanting the names of the Supreme, we're engaging in the devotional service that is natural for the spirit soul. So, yeah, it can be. I know for me it was destabilizing. My process took it very gradual, because I didn't want, it took me a few years to come to some level of serious practice. And that's why it's like, the more we immerse ourselves in the association of like-minded practitioners of Bhakti Yoga, the more we study the philosophy, then the more we gain a strong, eternal, solid foundation of who we really are and what we really do as eternal spiritual personalities, so that it's destabilizing. But we're not left with nothing. Yeah, the false foundations crack, and that in Bhakti they're replaced with true foundations with infinite roots. I appreciate the question. Thank you. Hare Krishna. What's our timing of this program?
What time is it right now?
It's 8:35.
Okay, that's pretty good timing to go to the next part of the evening.
Okay, thank you everyone for your presence.
Patrick's gonna speak next.
Okay, so have some refreshments, right? Cookies and very special cookies, and there's a peach tea. So I'll have some time where you can come and look at the book and buy the book, and there's special pricing and things like that, and I can take your payments. And then also, if you'd like to give a donation, then the donation for these Bhakti Yoga programs that were the source material of the book, Power of Bhakti, you can give a donation for those programs, and then you'll be entered into the opportunity to win this particular statue right here.
$4 or $5.
$5 donation. It's
Yeah,
not,
raffle
it's not
tickets.
gambling. It's not gambling.
No.
Can you get multiple tickets?
You can get multiple tickets.
The more, I don't know, more donation you give, then the more opportunity you will receive. But it's not gambling. So,
He's emphasizing that point.
If you wanted to sign up for Sabato class, would we see Ann?
I think so, yes. If Ann is
Sabato.
available, talk about Sabato Institute. I'm sure David will be, he's open for questions if he's around.
He'll be over there next to you, receiving and
Yes, so
giving.
please stay and give donations for raffle tickets, and look
Buy
at the
that
books,
book.
purchase the books. If you buy the book tonight, Power of Bhakti, there's some supplemental literatures included with about the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and what's the other one? Okay. So yeah,
Once the book comes along for free, you get a second book for the price of one tonight.
Wow. Here are the pictures. So please come and mingle.
If you want to raffle tickets,
Oh, yeah.
Come and give the donation.
Right, yeah.
Non-gambling.
And you're taking money?
Sure.
I would like a book and a raffle ticket.
Okay. And
Get organized.
the book here.
Yes.
So you'll come with this included.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Also have relationships that work.
I have that too. I have multiple copies of
So you
that.
can take this.
Okay.
You want to pay cash?
Yes? Is that okay?
15 for the book plus 5 for one donation raffle.
Yes.
$20.
Yeah, we were talking.
Yeah, the company's really big.
Yeah, would you want to do a little bit of that now?
Okay.
So it's nice to be with real people.
Yeah, I know. It's like natural and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah.
We're going.
Humans. Yeah, thank you. Thank you both. He